think, Brian, a lot of people thought, well, don't put the less skilled person just because they are a minority in that position. I think that's how so many people interpreted
That's right.
DEI efforts.
That's right. And I think we have to fault the corporate bodies and the institutions that started implementing these policies, because what they should have said is, we have done wrong. We've had lots of women in our workforce. We've had lots of people of color in our workforce who were more skilled, and yet they were passed over for promotion. They weren't given leadership opportunities because of their race, because of their gender. We made that mistake. We did something wrong. And now we're going to repair that by committing to correcting that cultural conditioning. But they didn't want to admit that they had done things in a bad way.
You're locked in to Burn the Blueprint podcast, where Tony Tidbit and Dr. Bridget Cooper challenge outdated rules and build smarter ways to lead. If you're ready for courage, clarity, and real talk, you're in the right place. All right, team, what blueprint are we burning today?
Hi, I'm Tony Franklin, also known as Tony Tidbit.
And I'm Dr. Bridget Cooper, also known as Dr. B.
And welcome to Burn the Blueprint podcast,
where we break down outdated corporate playbooks, call out what is not working, and rebuild smarter, stronger, people-centered systems that drive performance.
Absolutely. So Dr. B, you ready?
Well, I've got the lighter right here.
Okay, cool. You're definitely going to need it today, because today we're planning on burning one of the biggest blueprints in corporate America, the playbook around DEI.
Let's set it on fire and build something better.
All right, my girl, let's do it. Okay, Dr. B, let's start here. And I want you to play along with me for a second, right?
Yeah.
So imagine this. You just got hired into a new company. You're hopeful. You're excited, as we all are, right? And you're coming in as someone from a marginalized community who spent a lifetime of walking into rooms wondering, do I belong here? Am I safe here? Is this a place where I can actually show up as myself? But the thing is, Dr. B, this place feels different. From day one, the energy is warm. People welcome you with sincerity, not just that fake corporate smile that HR says that has no real connection. Folks actually pull you into conversations. They make space for your voice. You don't have to fight for it. And then here's the other thing. You start noticing something else. People here are talking openly, respectfully about what's happening in the world. There's no whispering, no tiptoeing, no fear of saying the wrong thing. Just honest dialogue, curiosity, and shared humanity. Now, let's fast forward. You've been there a couple of months, right? And this is what you're seeing. Leadership is transparent. They tell the truth. They explain decisions. They check in on you, right? They actually lead with clarity instead of hiding behind the corporate fog. You see that the employees are engaged. People stay late because not because they have to, because they care. You see teams collaborate, folks check in on one another. You feel part of the culture that actually works. One day, something heavy happens. Something that affects your community. Even before you gather your thoughts, right? The manager reaches out and says, hey, are you okay? Do you need anything? Take your time if you need something. Your well-being comes first. It's not a policy. It's not a checkbox. A genuine act of humanity. See, Dr. B, that's what DEI looks like when it's working. When belonging isn't a program, but when the air everybody breathes is open. When fairness isn't political, it's the standard. When leaders don't need an acronym to do right by the people, right? That's the beautiful picture, right? Unfortunately, that's not the reality most people experience. And that's the gap, the distance between the idea and the truth. That blueprint that we need to burn today.
Yeah, Tony, that's what you just described is what every company claims to want. claims to be having the programs and the initiatives, but are unwilling or unable to build. And that's part of the blueprint problem, is if we've been following an old blueprint, we're going to end up with the same results over and over again. Because this culture that you're describing does not happen by accident. You're not going to fall into that. You've got to have intention. You've got to have courage. And you've got to have leaders who understand that inclusion is a behavior, not a branding exercise. Right? And that's why it's not about the acronym of DEI. People aren't falling short in this equity and inclusion and feeling all of those things that you so aptly described in your monologue, because they don't care. They're falling short because they don't have the tools. They're overwhelmed. They're afraid. They're hiding behind this, like, what if I say the wrong thing? There's all these politics coming at me. So yeah, that gap you described, that's where the pain is. And that's what we need to burn today.
Well, look, we're definitely going to do that, right? And you're right. You know, that picture that I painted that we all want, right? That sounds so beautiful. That's actually, you know, something that every person deserves, right? Unfortunately, what I said to you just a few minutes ago was just a dream, because in reality, this is what people are dealing with.
There, first day I met my whole team, and the guy raises his hand. I'm like, what do you all want to know about? And says, how does it feel to be a diversity hire? 25 years old. I'm sitting here in front of a whole team. How does it feel to be diverse? And most people are twice my age. And everyone in the circle go around and tell me, what is something unique about you while you're in this role? Tell me something. And they were like, this, I'm this, I'm this. So we went around and I said, so you're all diversity hires, because we didn't hire cookie cutters of someone else. I am a diversity hire because I have a degree. I am a diversity hire because I have this level of experience. I'm a diversity hire because I had 150% growth in my last 4 sales roles. And I gave him the receipts, and I'm like, so you're thinking I'm a diversity hire because I'm Black. I'm a diversity hire because you need something on this team from leadership that you didn't have before I got here.
What an experience, Tony. You know, I like thinking about that. I love her boldness and her bravery in calling out what some of the thinking is around what DEI actually promotes. And DEI promotes so much more than race or religion or age or anything. It's about having a collection of voices on a team that are going to build the corporate culture better, that are going to create engagement and create connections that are going to benefit the company overall and its profitability.
Absolutely. And again, look at the antithesis of what we just went through in terms of somebody starting their first day, right? In the story that I painted earlier, you know, you walked in and everybody was welcoming. Everybody made you feel good, right? This is her reality of her first day at work. Right.
And I wish we could say she was alone, but you know she's not.
No, and that's the thing.
There's stories everywhere.
But that's the point. There's a million of these stories. Okay, the first day, right? We all been where we excited to go to work the first day. Okay, we're excited about our new opportunity. We're excited about the things that we're able to show, and we got this new company we're going to work with. We're going to have a new team, and then you get there, and she introduces herself to her team, and the first question is, how does it feel like to be a DEI hire?
And I think what that points out, Tony, too, is, those statistics that 70% of employees say they don't trust their company's DEI efforts because they lack visible action. So whether you're on her side of that space or on the person who said that, because to me, that also denotes a lack of trust in what DEI's mission really is, right? Like, just to give that person the benefit of the doubt that if they are suspicious of what DEI means, then they're going to see any diversity as being some sort of political game or, just doing a thing because it fits a narrative versus actually benefiting the team, which is what that means.
Yeah. And so here's the thing, let's back up for a second, right? Because let's be fair here, right? Because we're saying DEI, which stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Okay, let's be fair here, right? And so who in any person's mind would think diversity, equity, and inclusion those 3 words would be something that's so terrible that there's a narrative that makes somebody feel they're less than or they're unqualified. Where did that come from? Let me ask you this. If 2 Martians came and landed on Earth today, right?
It may happen, Tony. It could absolutely happen.
And they ran up to you like, oh my God, there's some Martians here, right? And you said, hey, DEI, you think they would have pulled, or you said diversity, equity, inclusion, you think they would pull out a ray gun and blast your ass? Because those words, get that. So there's been a narrative that has been created because the person, that guy who said that, okay? So at the end of the day, he didn't make that up. That didn't just come off the top of his membrane. He wouldn't have said that 10 years ago, 8 years ago. All right, to be fair here, it's the reason he said that and the reason that a lot of people are dealing with this because it became weaponized. It became political, right? And so most people don't understand, all right, unfortunately, with diversity, equity, inclusion. You know what they understand or what they've been listening to and what they've been hearing is this.
DEI is just a rebranded version of hating white people.
DEI, in this case, stands for divisive, erroneous, and insidious.
DEI, which stands for didn't earn it.
Discrimination, exclusion, and indoctrination.
DEI breeds complacency, Dana, and complacency kills.
We're going to have doctors who don't know how to perform heart surgery, and we're going to have planes that are falling out of the sky.
I'm sorry, if I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified.
Sorry. You see my point here, right?
Yeah.
So
100%.
You see my point here, right? So if that's being broadcasted all around every day, all right, and even the people who are like, what is DEI? What is that? Oh my God! So I don't want none of that. Or they must not be qualified. Well, look what's happening. That was the issue. Okay, it was weaponized to divide people, okay, and to create a false narrative, right? That's not true, all right? And then so now that's what you get when you walk into a place or somebody gets promoted that's been working their butt off for years, right? And they finally get recognized. Oh, they only got hired because they were black, or she only got hired because she was a woman. That's the issue today.
I agree 100%. And I think because of all of this divisiveness that's happened on so many issues, and this one is one of those really sharp points, is that leaders are trying to navigate these uncharted waters about how to have conversations and how to stand for the things that DEI actually represents instead of getting lost in the noise of what it has been attributed to be. You know, and how do leaders do that? How do they find their message in the mess of this and not throw out what is so good for the company? Just looking at bottom line. Don't even think about morality. Don't think about, any of those more value-based things. You want to have a more profitable company? Then diversity, equity, inclusion, and however you want to name that, those behaviors, that feeling of belonging, that feeling of connection, that feeling of shared mission, all of the psychological safety, ability to confront hard truths and problems and having conflict resolution skills around things, that hits the bottom line like nothing else.
There's no question, but unfortunately, the companies today, and that's why we were burning this blueprint, right? Because they're complicit. They're complicit, right? Instead of sitting back and saying, you know what, we're going to change this narrative. We're not going to fall under the knife. We're not going to we're not going to politicize something that we know for the fact, everything that you just talked about and more, right? We're not going to fall into that because we want our company to this. And we know more importantly, if we create a very diverse and equitable and inclusion-oriented company, it's going to increase profit. It's going to increase productivity. It's going to increase market share, all those things. But unfortunately, since the new administration has come in, let's be fair here, right? As of January 2025, what have you seen? You have seen companies quietly removing the term DEI from job titles, budgets, and initiatives, right? And so basically, they've caved instead of standing up and like, wait a minute, again, we're talking diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's the see. When you weaponize something and you create it into a little acronym, and that acronym means the devil, or that acronym means, the destruction of the world. That's all people remember, right? But we're talking diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? So now, because of the companies being complicit, all right, instead of just folding, right? What's happening now? You got 55% of employees say belonging impacts whether they stay at a job or not. So now you got people like, I don't even want to be here. Okay. And because now they don't want to be here. Are they being productive? Of course not. Right. No. So now you're seeing a higher turnover rate by Deloitte. All right. From underrepresented groups within the last 18 months. Right. And then DEI budget cuts spiked legal risks by the Harvard Business Review 2025, right? So the bottom line is they think if we remove the acronym, right, that everything will be okay. All right. Because that's what this administration wants us to do. And we got to be honest here, right? We're going to burn the blueprint. We're going to be authentic and we got to say what time it is, because this is what time it is. Okay. And at the end of the day, I will get rid of the acronym. And then now let's go back to that picture that we painted when we first came on today, that beautiful oasis of walking in an organization and feeling comfortable and having forget the word manager, leaders make everybody feel important, right? And people collaborating together and having openness and honestness and authenticity, all those things. There's no such thing, because now people don't want to talk. People are talking in silos, right? So you got secret, chatter going on, right? The leaders don't know how to handle it, all right? Because they are afraid to have any type of these conversations, right? And then back to that beautiful oasis, when the employees are not robots. This is not, they don't live in a vacuum. So when something major outside of work happens that affects a community and stuff, they still got to show up. They can't even talk about that. All right. And so they're immune to these things, right? That's one of the major issues. And we got to burn this, because at the end of the day, you're not empowering anyone. And just trying to get rid of, eradicate an acronym does not make your company better.
No, and beyond that acronym piece is looking underneath it and saying, okay, so if you're sending a message, leaders set the tone. And if you're sending the message as a leader that I no longer stand for diversity, equity, inclusion, if that's going to be your plan, if that's your plan, okay, cool. Let's go down this logic train. Then what are you replacing that with? What's the antonym of that?
That's an excellent
because
point.
That's what you're going to get. You're gonna remove the idea of fairness, of people, because again, if your people don't trust you to take on the hard conversations, to make the hard stands, to talk about mission and talk about how you create culture and belonging and shared values and all of that, then people are going to fill in the vacuum.
Correct.
With all sorts of mess, which is probably going to be lack of productivity, back to quiet quitting from several years ago. There's going to be turnover. There's going to be, and I deal with this all the time as a coach, is the infighting that happens among middle management, leadership, et cetera, because no one's having the real conversations, and there's no trust, and therefore there's no belonging, there's no connection, and results are, in the crapper. So we really do. We gotta set this one on fire, Tony.
Well, we gotta set it on fire, but then to your point, we gotta replace it with something else. Okay,
100%.
Because let's be
100%.
fair though too. Now, again, you've heard me. I'm very passionate about this as well as you, right? That doesn't mean that a DEI program that a company instituted or implemented was perfect. or it wasn't against scrutiny. Okay, let's be fair here. All right.
Sure.
Some of them were just to say, I got a DEI program.
Right.
Right. So
They were just lip service.
It was performative. So I get it. I definitely understand that. I've been at companies, right, where, I'm not gonna tell you the name, but it was checking the box. Now, they would be I give them, again, nothing is perfect, right? You can perfect it. But so they were transparent in terms of what the makeup of the organization was. They were transparent in terms of they're trying to get more women or people of color in leadership. Because here, let's break it down here too. And this is where when you're just following a narrative, all right, and you don't know, and they say it must be right, and you just go by it. So let's be fair here. If you look at the stats, the data, one of the narratives was, people of color, women being promoted without, they wasn't qualified. Okay, that's number one, right? And then number two, and I'm actually, I'm being facetious here, I'm being sarcastic, but in other terms, they just going around in a dump truck and saying, "Oh, you black, you want a job?" And you just tell people in jump.
Oh, you want to fly this plane? Here you go. Yeah.
You want to fly an airplane? Come on.
Go for it.
This and this and that, which makes no sense. Right. All right. That's not, if you just took a step back and thought it from a logical standpoint, that would never happen. Okay. You couldn't do that at McDonald's. Okay. So just to be fair, but this is what people believe. But let's look at the stats. When we look at the number of people of color in leadership positions, okay, executive leadership positions, it's like 3%. Okay, so wait a minute. Just I can go on and on. If you look at the
same with women,
I'm just telling you, these numbers are minuscule. So if these programs was implemented and it was bringing people in and giving them jobs, wouldn't those numbers go up drastically? Okay,
you'd think so.
Not only that, name the company that hired a bunch of people that were unqualified, okay? And their employee roles, ROLES, increased substantially. Exactly.
Right.
You hear the crickets?
Yeah.
There is
crickets. There's nothing.
You can't. So because if those companies were doing that, you would know their names. They would tell you this company is this or this company is doing this. It's all BS, right? But at the end of the day, I blame the company. Okay, because at the end of the day, you decide. What did you just got finished saying? Leaders set the tone.
They set the tone.
And I get it. You want to make money, and I get it. You want you increase your, and then you could feel there could be some troubled waters from administration standpoint in terms of you getting what you want. And
sure,
I get it. Look, I'm not. I get it. I get it.
We don't live in a vacuum.
We don't live in. And so, but hold on for a second. Say that again.
We don't live in a vacuum.
Okay, so that same premise goes for the employee as well. Okay,
100%.
So the company doesn't live in a vacuum, so they got to pay attention to what's happening outside of their walls, and then they adjust as well. Well, wouldn't the employee have the same right? All right, that they don't live in a vacuum, and they're showing up, and their company that they're giving their sweat, blood, and tears for, that they're showing up through hurricane and through family loss, and also not feeling included, tells you, looks you in the eye and says, we're getting rid of our DEI program. How would that make you feel?
Right. Oh, terrible. I mean, and again, I think one of the things that we often overlook is white women, as I am one, we're a beneficiary of DEI. And
Say
so
that again.
often,
Say that again.
I am a white woman,
educate,
and I am a beneficiary, and I am 100% a beneficiary of DEI. 100%.
You don't hear that though.
No. And again, I think, I'm looking at behind you is, if people who aren't watching this and they're listening, there's a picture of Maya Angelou. And this is what I have to say. Her quote, if you know better, do better.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Yeah. And that is, I think, the whole Burn the Blueprint mission here. Underlying all of this is to listen for new information, to be able to see things differently, to really dig in, get curious about what's really underneath the problem that you've defined one way and see if it's actually the problem that you have in front of you. And once you know that, you have an obligation to do better. And I think that's really what it is. It's like, it's not trying to vilify all the companies who may have stumbled in this,
Correct.
but once they know better, they have an obligation to do better.
There is no question. And I love what you said. Well, I love everything you said. Matter of fact, I love you, Dr. B.
Oh my God, I love you right back,
Because
Tony.
you telling them what time it is. But here's the thing. The bottom line is this. When you believe in something, you perfect something. Okay.
Yeah.
So yes, it had its warts, or it has its warts. Yes, it could be done a lot better. Yes, it might have made other people feel excluded the way it was positioned. Okay. It might have made white people feel like, what about me? All right. Blah, blah. So, and I get all that. I get all that. So you can perfect it, but it's how you present it. Okay.
Right.
And it's how you implement it. And then along the way, to your point, you look at the data, you hear from your people, and then you start making changes. And then you can hopefully create that utopia that we spoke about in the beginning of the show. However, and again, we don't want to paint a broad brush here, because there's probably a ton. Here's the thing. Let's be fair here. There's probably a ton of companies that is doing it right. Right.
Yeah.
You don't hear about them. All right. We don't know
They're not making the news.
They're making news because they want to talk about all the negativity. Right. But let's just look at this. Let's look at the facts. Right. To what you just got from saying, going back by leadership. Right. If the leader doesn't do better, what happens? Well, 70% of employees say they do not trust their company's DEI efforts because of the lack of visual action, right? So right off the bat, because you said we're going to get rid of this or we're going to change it, and then under the covers, we still believe in it. Right off the bat, you lost 7 out of 10. All right. Not only that, the people that are their first line level leaders, 63% of those individuals are not confident in terms of discussing anything when it comes to equity and inclusion, because nobody's trained them. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you don't know, let's keep using Maya Angelou, right? Which is, if you know better, you do better, right? But at the end of the day, if you don't know, you can't do better, because nobody's giving you any type of training, any type of ammunition. They just expect we get rid of these 3 letters and everything will be beautiful, right?
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, we need the companies. The companies need to own up. And I'm going to play this quick little clip, right? Because here's the thing. This is what people need to understand. Well, wait a minute. What happened and this and that? But here's the clip that explains that when this was first implemented, one of the things that the companies could have did in the right way was be more truthful in why they wanted to put their arms around diversity, equity, inclusion. And they didn't, right? And so let's play this clip, and I want to hear your thoughts.
I think, Brian, a lot of people thought, well, don't put the less skilled person just because they are a minority in that position. I think that's how so many people interpreted DEI efforts.
That's right. And I think we have to fault the corporate bodies and the institutions that started implementing these policies, because what they should have said is, we have done wrong. We've had lots of women in our workforce. We've had lots of people of color in our workforce who were more skilled, and yet they were passed over for promotion. They weren't given leadership opportunities because of their race, because of their gender. We made that mistake. We did something wrong. And now we're going to repair that by committing to correcting that cultural conditioning. But they didn't want to admit that they had done things in a bad way. They didn't want to confront, they didn't want to embrace the wrong. They didn't want to say we backed it poorly. That is the consequence of corporate institutions not saying we failed. We did something wrong. We did discriminate. We did not give the most skilled person the job because of their gender and their race. And now we're going to commit to doing that. And so instead of it being presented as a gimme to unqualified, less skilled people because of their race and gender, it was actually a remedy for harm that was done to people because of their race and gender. And we don't like owning up to the mistakes we made.
Yeah, I love all of that. I mean, I hate all of that, but I love all of that because what it points out is this idea that we assume that a DEI initiative is about promoting people who aren't qualified, when in fact it comes down to brain science, Tony. So we as social creatures are insular, right? We look for people who look like us. Our brains are wired to think that anybody who doesn't look like us or sound like us is different and could be a threat. That is just how we're wired. And we have to overcome those innate survival mechanisms in order to be better versions of ourselves. So if we think about that from a brain science perspective and we look at the data, the historical data of who has run, just looking at American corporations, you will see that it is white men. So, and again, nothing against white men.
Correct,
Love
correct,
y'all.
correct.
But the problem is that if you acclimate toward people who are like you, and that is how your brain is wired, then who are you going to mentor? Who are you going to promote? Who are you going to think is a better candidate? Who are you going to defer to when something needs to be held responsible for? It's that. It's battling up the stream about that and so many other societal layers. But if we just look at the brain science, then we recognize that that's what we're up against. And if we just look at DEI as saying, or whatever acronym, however we want to rebuild it, as saying we need to recognize that we're wired to exclude, not because we're bad people, but because that is how we were created to keep our tribes, our group, our family safe, right?
Right.
And if we know that, then we know that, again, know better, do better, then we have to create intentionally programs that are designed to include people who our brains might not be inclined to include because of the way that we're wired. And that's a lot of what I bump up against when I do these kinds of programs for people. And I have colleagues who do them, is this idea that saying that we need a DEI program is calling somebody a bad person if they've done something in the past or been part of a machine that created inequity.
Yeah.
No, I can be value free on that and simply say the brain tells the story.
There's no question. And here's the thing, you know, and I go back to what you were saying earlier, everything comes from the top. Okay. So as an organization, if I'm going to implement something across my organization that I feel as a company, we didn't do a really good job at, right? And it could be even before I got there, right? To be fair, I'm a new CEO, what case may be, but to be fair, right? One of the first things I'm going to think about is the messaging to the group, right? Knowing that if I don't get the messaging right, it can be serious repercussions, right? And so that's the key here, is that at the end of the day, you just got to finish saying, hey, we need to understand that, number one, if we don't do this the right way, people are immediately going to say, oh, they're trying to take something from me or they're trying to give something to somebody else who don't deserve it. That's just, I mean, that's how we go. If you were a kid playing with marbles, you got 3 marbles and somebody comes and says, hey, I'm going to give you, I'm going to give you 4 marbles. I'm going to give you, first thing you'll be like, wait a minute, why I only get 4 and he get 3. All right. That's what we do. So at the end of the day, as a company, you have to understand that in anything that you roll out, right? And make sure, especially when it affects the people, that you roll it out, understanding the mindset, the mental makeup in terms of how we receive and process information, if you want it to work, right? And so that was not done. It was done more of a social, it was done more of, I feel sorry. It was done more of that, right? Versus trying to actually right a wrong. Okay. Look, at the end of the day, the blueprint needs to change from the top. All right. And so anytime you're looking to roll out something, right, that you know is going to right or wrong, and more importantly, it's going to affect your employees, everyone, because back to his point, this didn't just was affecting women and people of color. It was also affecting the mainstream, because they were looking at like, wait a minute, what is this? What are you doing? Why now? There was a ton of stuff that needed to be flushed out and needed to be stated. And versus just throwing something against the wall. And here's the thing, you're talking billion. And I get it if you're a startup. And you know, you're a $2 million startup. You may not know. We're talking $1 billion companies, all right, that supposedly use data and all this type of stuff. You know, okay, but you just threw something out, right? So you could say, hey, I got a black square on my on the door of our company, and we believe in this and we believe in that and the whole 9 yards, right? And so that's the key. So let's talk about, let's reframe this, my sister. Let's now take that beautiful picture that we talked about, we laid out in the beginning, and let's burn that blueprint. That all that shit in terms of what we just talked about was horrible. They should never do it again. Now, let's go ahead and implement a new blueprint in terms of what this should look like. Why don't you kick us off?
Yeah. So first off, we have to get comfortable with high conflict conversations because there has been so much bubbling underneath and not so underneath around this. So it's going to take some courageous conversations on the part of leadership to be able to have those honest conversations. And part of that is predicated on, again, if you understand how the brain works, if you understand the history of these dynamics, you don't have to be shameful about it. You don't have to be embarrassed about it. You can just name it as it is. Like, this is a dynamic. This is how this happens. And we need to set this up differently. And then it needs to be about, it's in the cell. It's about what benefits a company and every member in it. When teams are working seamlessly together, when people are cooperating, when hard conversations are had, when people feel safe and included and wanted and respected in their roles, when they're pulling things across the finish line with banners and ticker tapes, right? Like, that's what sells to the company and to the stakeholders and the shareholders and all of that. And that's what looking at anything that has anything to do with belonging, inclusivity, honesty, hard conversations, all of those things lead to feeling connected to the organization and therefore feeling connected to the bottom line and the mission.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And look, the cat's out of the bag. It is what it is, right? But at the end of the day, let's call it what it is. It's called fairness, right? It's called cultural health, okay? Talent systems, right? You just said the word psychological safety, right? Leadership effectiveness, right? So we want to take these things and we want to incorporate them throughout our organization. You don't need no acronyms for that, right? Nope. And then more importantly, you just spoke on it. I'm going to dive a little bit deeper because this is a big thing, right? Huge thing. Yeah. Is lack of communication. Okay. Yeah. So you need to train your leaders to have real conversations. Okay. Going back to this ain't about somebody's fault, or this is about somebody feeling guilty, or this is just real leadership conversations, conflict navigation, right? How to deal with when one of your subordinates or somebody comes up and they say, I'm dealing with this, or I don't see this, or I'm on what is our policy, or I just read I just read on Wall Street Journal that we got rid of our DEI. A CEO stood up and told everybody we're done with that, and there wasn't even an internal memo in the office.
Right.
It's the same thing, right? So
what are you doing? Yeah.
So think about it. You tell the world before you even tell us, right? So understand, you got to train your leaders to have these conversations, regardless if you take away, if you get rid of an acronym or a program, doesn't mean that goes away from an emotional standpoint, right? And then talk fairness without fear, right? What is that? Yes. Because here's the thing though, man. What does that mean, right? Because that's really what it's about. Okay. It's about fairness. Okay. It's about, hey, we want to make sure everybody has an opportunity. That doesn't mean we're giving stuff away to people who don't deserve it. What it means is that we're going to be fair to everyone. And if Bridget Cooper is the best person and she's a woman, then she gets the promotion. All right. If Tony Tidbit is the best person, regardless, he black, white, he gets to make it fair and do it in them. I've been at places where, how did these people get promoted? Okay. Right. And trust me, they wasn't black. How did they get promoted? And there's no criteria. There's nothing in place that shows if you do this, this, and this, you get this, right? Or at least you're at least recommended for that. You don't see none of that, right? It's just, I remember this one, I was like, bro, how did they get promoted? And a couple of people on my team who was running circles around them. Right. Some people on my team asking them, how do I do this? How do I do that? What's going on? And then these people get promoted. One of them came into my office and said, I'm willing to do anything. blah, blah. And then a month later, so in other words, they came and kissed your ass.
Right.
You said, I'm going to promote them, right?
Right.
Is that transparent? So that's
Yeah.
the point here, right? And that goes across. It doesn't matter what color or gender you are. It should go for everybody, right?
Right.
Make it transparent, right? And then build systems, not statements.
Yes, the systems.
Just talking about. Go ahead, elaborate on that, my sister.
Yeah, no, building systems, because again, if bottom line, what creates psychological safety, even if you don't like that term, let's drop that term. You just want people to feel part of the mission, part of the organization, committed to your work, then they have to trust. And in order to trust, there has to be some legs underneath that trust. And that is predictability. That is rules. That is structure. That is the things they can point to and go, that, and that equals that. When this 1 + 1 = 7 or 1 + 3 = 14, then nobody trusts the system. And what you're talking about is having structures enough so that is what happens. So I want to burn this down, Tony.
We're going to burn. Are you kidding me?
Are we ready?
On it, right? But man, we're going to keep burning because there's a lot to it,
yeah,
right?
There's a lot to burn.
Well, here's the thing, though, right? Get rid of the performative stuff. Okay, people don't care. They see what it is. It's fake, right? You think you're doing something, right? But all the things that we talked about, right? Building those systems, and then you said this earlier, right? Anchor everything in business outcomes. Right?
Yeah.
So which will increase higher retention. There'll be lower conflict, better collaboration, improved performance across teams. So at the end of the day, it should be about the bottom line. It should be about making sure that you have KPIs in place that everyone is aware of. Everyone, right? And then those KPIs, right, is based on business outcomes. All right? Because if you set it up that way with all the other things that we talked about, as well as, and this is where the humanity comes in, is training your leaders to recognize that when certain things happen in the world, even though it doesn't happen within the building, it still affects their employees. So there needs to be some type of EQ training here, right? Empathy, where you reach out automatically and, hey, are you okay? None of the check the box, I need to go and send this cookie cutter type shit to everybody, right? Real, authentic, empathetic leadership. And I can tell you, I see you, right? I see you, I feel you, and I am with you. Right? And when you do that and you do it consistently and people feel that you got their best interests at heart, they will go through a wall for you.
Yes. And that's what we want, right? We want that kind of committed leadership. And in order to do that, people have to be committed to you and have to feel your commitment to them.
Absolutely, my girl. So look, let's just what we want to do. We're gonna get ready to burn, but before we burn, right? Let's just recognize.
I'm so ready.
We want to keep this in front of people, right? So let's recap, right? Understand, labels mean nothing. They divide us, right? Humanity is what connects us. So make sure that you have everything set up. Fairness is not political. It's leadership. All right. So make sure you have that. Don't retreat when it's from the work. Refine it. So there could be some stuff that's not right. Go ahead and start peeling that stuff off, but make it better. Don't get rid of it, right? And then invite the employees to share their real stories. And don't be scared of that, okay? Be open to that, because when people are able to be authentic and share, and everybody can hear somebody's lived experience, and let me just say this, it's not just hearing lived experiences from Black women or people of color and women, hearing everyone's lived experience. It's across the board, right? All of a sudden now people don't see this as a company. They see this as a family. They see this as an extension of where they grew up or where they lived at, right? And because they see it that way, they will drive not only your revenue, not only all the business outcomes, but more importantly, they will stay there and they will help you hire even better talent that you could ever think about, because they're the first people telling everybody how great this company is.
Yeah. Yep. 100%. And that's how you do it, right? That's how you burn it down, is you look at what wasn't working about it. You figure out what the essence of the intention behind it are. What is the real purpose of the activity you got involved with in the beginning? And then you create something better.
I think, did we create something better here, my girl?
I think we did. I think
so? We might have. Matter of fact, did we have this trademarked? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Because, next thing you know, somebody taking this and then, it's worth $1 trillion and all we did was get a sandwich or something.
I got it written up. I just got to get your signature, but I got it written up. We got this.
Okay. Well, guess what? Even if we don't have a trademark, if everybody can do this, man, I'm just telling you, look where we would go as a company, as a country. So really excited. So to be, that's a wrap for today's burn.
Yeah. We broke and burned an outdated blueprint using my lighter, right?
Exactly.
And this is what we're doing here. We're burning blueprints.
And more importantly, too, obviously we're burning, but if this conversation sparks something in you, if it made you feel a certain way, good or bad, whatever, share it with somebody who needs to hear it. A leader, your CEO of your organization, your HR people person, share with them and say, hey, you guys listen to this. There's a couple things I think it'll be very important that we do. And more importantly, give us feedback. Come on, tell us, hey, look, we love what you said, or, we ain't like it, right? And you got something better. We are all for that. Dr. B and I, we're not
learning.
Exactly. We know what we know, and we're always open. And that's why we created Burn the Blueprint podcast, right?
Yeah. And I want to find out from people, what do they want us to burn next? Because there's got to be some more blueprints out there that they want us to torch.
You know that. I mean, you kidding me? We'll be in business forever.
I'm going to have to get another lighter.
All right. So officially, you ready to burn this?
I'm ready.
All right. There we go. Now we're burning. Woo, look at the flame. I don't want everybody thinking we are pyros and stuff to that nature, right?
I mean, a little.
Okay, maybe. When it comes to this blueprint, we look at the flames all day long, right? So
let's do it.
At the end of the day, this is Burn the Blueprint podcast,
where old systems get tossed
and new ideas get built.
Exactly.
All right. Again, Dr. B, go ahead and burn it.
See you next time.
All right.